Hello and welcome everyone. In the previous tutorial, we have discussed how to make proper connection with a database using Python. And now in this video tutorials, we will take a step further and understand how to perform full CRUD operation using Python in a database. So in this video tutorial, we will discuss all the CRUD operations where we will first understand about the create operation, then we will understand about the retrieving data operation, then we will understand about the update operation, and in the last we will discuss about the delete operation. So without any further delay, let's jump to the very first topic. And let's first understand about the CRUD operations. The full form of CRUD stands for create, read, update and delete. These phrases explains the four fundamental procedures of creating and manipulating permanent data items primarily in the relational databases. A special interest group has been recommended the Python database API as a set of standard for database module standardization. This standard must be followed by all the Python modules that offer database interface functionality for all the major database products. Another Python enhancement proposal was further updated the DB API standard to create DB API 2. SQLite database connectivity is already supported by the default Python distribution. SQLite 3 module built by Gerhard Haring that compiles with DB API 2.0 version. Now that we got an overview related to the CRUD operation, let's first discuss about the very first operation, that is the create operation. Now we will understand about the create operation by practically implementing it, and we also need to understand one thing that for this tutorial we will use the same SQLite 3 module and SQLite 3 database for the implementation. Now let's jump to the example. So here on the screen you can see that I have opened my Jupyter notebook. In this you can see very first example related to create operation. So what I have done in this, first I have imported the SQLite 3 module, then I am using the try except block for exception handling, and within this first I have make a database connection using the connect method, and I'm trying to connect to my Python guides database. After this I have created a cursor. The name of this cursor is CUR, and to create a cursor object we use this cursor method. Once this code has been implemented, our Python program will print the statement that connection and cursor have been created successfully. After this we have defined a SQL query using multi-line string. So what this SQL query will do, we use the create table statement to create a table with name employee, and within this table there are three columns: employee ID, which is of integer data type and it is an auto increment primary key, then there is employee name, then in the last we have a employee age column which is of integer data type. Now to execute this query we are going to use the execute method with our cursor object. So we write cur.execute, and within the execute method we pass the name of our SQL query. Now once this operation has been implemented, it is important to commit the database, because without committing, changes to the database will not be saved. So we use the commit method to commit the database, and in the last it will print out table created successfully. If somehow we got any exception in the above code, this except block will be executed where it will print this out that there is some error in the execution, and it will roll back to the previous database commit. And in the last we also use this finally block. So what is the role of this finally block? This finally block will be executed every time, and it will close the cursor and close the connection with our database. So let me execute this block. So here you can see we got this result where first this connection and cursor has been created successfully, then the table created successfully, and in the last cursor and connection got closed. Now let's check our database and check whether the table has been created or not. Now for SQLite 3 I will use the DB browser. So I will open this DB browser, then here I will click on this files and then click on this open database option, and I have to select the Python guides database file. So once I open this Python guides database file, here under tables we can see this employee table has been created, and if I browse the table, this is the table structure, and currently the table is empty because we haven't inserted any data in the table. Now let's move forward and let's insert some data in our table as well. For this I will move to the next example, that is related to the insert operation. Now what we have done in this insert operation, first we have made the connection with our database, then we created the cursor, and the only modification that we have done here is in the SQL query. So instead of using the create table statement, we are using the insert into statement. So we use the insert into statement to insert records in our table. Now here you can see instead of specifying the value, I have used question mark. So with this, what will happen? I can use the execute function to pass the values dynamically to my SQL query. So what will happen? For the first instance, the values for employee name and employee age will be James and 25. Then again, I'm executing the query with different values. For example, Adam and 23, and in the last the value is John and 31. So I'm inserting three records in my table, and after that I am using the commit method, and I'm also using the print function to print a success message that data has been inserted successfully. Remaining, I am using the except block for exceptional handling, and if there is any exception, it will print out the statement that is there is some error in the execution, and it will roll back to the last commit, and in the very last it will close all the connections with the database. So let me execute this code block, and here you can see first we got this connection and cursor created successful message, then we got this message related to data inserted successfully, and in the last we got the message where our cursor and connection is being closed. Now let's move back and let's open our database again, and this time if I open my table, here you can see there are three records in the table now. So with this we have successfully created our employee table, and we have successfully inserted three records in it. Now let's move back and let's discuss about the read operation. So as discussed earlier, in CRUD operation, the R stands for read operation, and how we can read data from our table, or we can say database, we use a select statement for it. So let's see this example where first we made our connection with our Python guides database, then we use a select statement, select X string from employee. Now we also use this thing that is limit 1. So which means by this query we are only able to fetch the very first record from our employee table, and then we execute this query. Now to fetch the result set, there are mainly two methods related to retrieving data. Very first one is this fetch one method. Now what this fetch one method will do, it will retrieve the next entry from the result set that has been accessible. It is basically a tuple made up of the values from each column in the record that has been fetched. After fetch one, there is another method that is fetch all, which retrieves the last set of records as a list of tuples. Each tuple represents a single record and contains the value for every table column, and we will discuss examples related to both of them. That is why in this example we have used this limit one clause with our select query, so that we can fetch only one record from our table. And then here you can see with our cursor I have used this fetch one method printing its object, which is emp, and remaining code is same. So if I execute this code block, here you can see first we got this connection message, then the query gets executed and we are fetching the result. So the result is this one which we got, where 1 represents the employee ID, James represents the employee name, and 25 is the employee age, and in the last connection and cursor was closed. In the same way, if we move forward, we can use the fetch all method to fetch all the records from our result set. So what we have to do in that case, we use the select S string from employee query. Now this time it will fetch all the three records and store the result where we have executed the query in our cursor. Then we use the fetch all method with our cursor and try to fetch all the result in the employees variable. Now what we need to do, we need to iterate over multiple result sets that are there in our employees variable. So we use the for loop here. So for record in employees, and then we are printing each record. So by this it will print each record in a separate line, and then we simply use the exception and finally block. If I execute this code block as well, here you can see the result where we got all three tuples of our result. Now let's move forward and let's discuss about the next operation, that is the update operation. The role of the update operation is to update certain data from our database, and for this purpose we use the update query. So here in the example you can see first we made the connection, then we use the update employees query where employees is the name of our table, then we use the set option to set the value for employee age where employee name is given in our execution. So I'm executing this query where the employee name is John, and I'm updating the value of employee age to 27. So if I show you the result set, previously for John the age is 31, and I'm trying to update this value to 27 using the update statement. So if I execute this code block, here you can see we got this success message that is record has been updated. If I come back to my read operation code and again run that, In that case, you can see now the age for John is showing as 27. So with this, we have successfully used the update query or update operation in our database. Now let's move to the last operation, that is the delete operation. The role of the delete operation is to delete any database object, and for this we use the delete statement in SQL. Now here in this example, first we made the connection, and here what we are doing, we have defined this SQL query where we want to delete some data from our employee table where the employee name is specified. So I have specified the employee name as John, and I'm executing this SQL query. So once this execution has been completed, it will print out this success message, that is record deleted. And let me execute this code block. So once I run this, you can see this record deleted success message is printed. Now let's move back to our retrieving data operation, and if I execute that, in that case now you can see only two tuples are being returned. That is because we have deleted one where the name of the employee was John. And with this we also come to the end of this tutorial session. Thank you so much for watching this video. We will see you in the next one.